This is the Crowd Crux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Bienvenidos a the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Y me llamo Salvador. Welcome. Working on my Spanish, guys, trying to get my pronunciation better and also learn some vocabulary. Welcome to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. And on this show, we talk about how to get funding for your crowdfunding campaign. I'll interview successful entrepreneurs, people who are currently raising funding, people who have raised funding, and we get into the techniques that they use, the strategies they used to actually get attention, to get awareness, to get traffic, to boost their funding meter, all the stuff that I think you would really want to know if you're gearing up for the launch of a crowdfunding campaign, or even if you're just vaguely thinking of one. It gives you a really good idea of what you have to do to be successful on Indiegogo or Kickstarter or other crowdfunding platforms that are out there. More recently, I've actually been focusing more on the post-Kickstarter campaign. So after you've run a successful campaign on Kickstarter, you've raised a bunch of money, there are a bunch of problems that emerge. You have to deal with things like failed credit card payments. You have to figure out how to get your backers' information, do surveys, add-ons, all that kind of stuff. Even maybe continuing funding. How do you maintain this momentum that you've built up, even though the campaign is now finished? So there's a lot of problems that crop up once you are successful. And don't get me wrong, these are good quality problems. These are problems that you want to have, but they are still problems. So in episode 203, I talked with an expert about Kickstarter fulfillment and advice and tips for shipping out your rewards, getting them in the hands of your backers. Today, I spoke with an expert when it comes to the survey process, when it comes to dealing with those things like failed credit card payments, dealing with things like how do you set up a post-Kickstarter campaign, how do you collect pre-orders, all of that kind of stuff. You're going to hear from a representative of BackerKit, which is actually one of the sponsors of this podcast. I've been working with them for a really long time, and recently they were telling me that they want to do more education. They want to put more advice and tips into the world that help crowdfunders. And they were like, so how do I get started with this? How do I do this? And I'm like, guys, you got to come on the podcast. Just come on the show and we'll do a complete brain dump. I'll just ask you very targeted questions and really get into your knowledge base and all the stuff that you've learned, and we'll learn from real world examples. And that's what I did with today's episode. So I think it's going to be really helpful for you if you want to get a hold on what happens after the Kickstarter campaign is finished, as well as learn a little bit more about BackerKit. I am not shy about asking them some more of those intense questions when it comes to their service, things like pricing, things like, is this really going to work if you have a smaller project, or who is it for, or what kind of ROI do you get even for spending that money? I am not shy about asking those very direct questions, which I know you want to know the answers to. So I think you'll like today's podcast episode. The other quick announcement I have is that my new book, called Equity Crowdfunding Explained, is now available on Amazon. Equity crowdfunding is basically Kickstarter, but instead of having to ship out rewards and perks to your backers, you're actually giving away shares of your company. So you're gaining access to a bunch of investors, a crowd of investors who not only then have a financial stake in your company, but they also become evangelists for you. Just imagine if you raised, $500,000 with an equity crowdfunding campaign, you now have a ton of people who are vested in spreading the word about your new app, spreading the word about your online marketplace, maybe your retail business, whatever it is. They're invested in you, both physically, financially, but also emotionally. They want to share the word with their friends. They're willing to post about your project on Facebook, as well as about your company and what you offer. So equity crowdfunding is a really powerful way to raise funds. It's also a great way to sort of get the word out about what your company is doing, to sign on more users, and finally to add that viral component to your project. So if you want to learn more about this new thing called equity crowdfunding, who it's for, how you can use it, what are the regulations involved, what are the major, the best websites, the top players in the industry, I've shared all of that with you in this book, Equity Crowdfunding Explained, and you can access it at crowdcrux.com/equity. That is crowdcrux.com/equity. We'll take you to the Amazon page and you can grab a copy there. And if you do, man, I would love it if you could take a second to just leave an Amazon review for me. When I'm in the early stages of launching a new book, it's always really difficult to get Amazon reviews. So I would really appreciate it if you could take a second to leave an Amazon review if you do like this book on equity crowdfunding. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Jason, welcome to the podcast. Jason is the content and community manager at BackerKit. If you don't know, you've probably listened to some of the other episodes on this show. BackerKit is one of the long-running sponsors of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. They really have a focus on education, putting out good content. I've been working with them for many years. I love what they do, how they help the ecosystem. So with today's podcast, we want to get into some of the tips for you when it comes to fulfillment and shipping and also surveys, the entire fulfillment phase. So Jason, thank you for coming on the podcast and welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sal.
So I understand that you actually launched your own crowdfunding campaign before joining BackerKit. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. Without going into too much detail, it was a comic book project I did with my brother called the Save Pepe Kickstarter project. And it was an effort to reclaim the identity of a character that he created a long time ago, Pepe the Frog. And we wanted to join the Kickstarter community and figure out who our true fans were, who were the people that followed the character for the right reasons, for the positive reasons. Because, the origins of the character is just like a chilled out frog, and it's just kind of like college humor and stuff like that. And it got repurposed during the election season and in a pretty negative light. So we wanted to reclaim it, create a new comic book for the audiences that were there from the beginning and just give them something new. And we thought Kickstarter would be a great platform to do that.
So for those that don't know about Pepe the Frog, like what was the humor there behind that? What was sort of you trying to reclaim the image there? It started as a meme. It was kind of meme culture. And, it was just a drawing that my brother did in a comic book called Boys Club that people just kind of took on the internet and started attaching to happy faces and sad faces and everything in between. And, it was pretty innocent, typical internet culture stuff. And, it got repurposed by the alt-right movement. And it was in the election season. It kind of surfaced as a type of symbol or mascot for this alt-right stuff, which just really isn't the origins of that character at all. It's just actually really chill. It was created in San Francisco. It's actually kind of the opposite of that. So we just wanted to bring that to light and see what kind of followers we could gather on a platform. And realistically, we just couldn't afford to make a comic book in that scale. A few hundred copies and pins and stickers and all that stuff. It adds up. So we thought we would look into a crowdfunding platform, and the community on Kickstarter seemed to be a great fit. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and we're not battling internet culture or sharing the image in positive ways. That stuff's fine, and it just goes. But when people are using the image to profit off of it and profit off hate, and yeah, exactly.
Like that,
it's not really what you originally intended. And this is actually, I think you're underselling this. This is a really big meme. Like a lot of my friends knew about this. This is really popular.
Yeah, it's a big thing, but that would be a podcast in itself most likely. So we're just trying to stay a little focused because I could talk about all the ins and outs and struggles with it over the few years. But yeah, I mean, long story short, it's just trying to turn a negative into a positive, focus on the good, and that's a commentary. Like a lot of people these days, they just eat up the negative stuff so much, and
I hate it. Yeah,
I do too. They'll share a headline. They'll just be like, "Oh, that's great. That's juicy. Let's share." But when it's super positive or nice or like a great story or then people just aren't sharing it as much. It's very odd.
It doesn't really like pique those different emotions that cause someone to want to share all the time. So it's difficult. I think the same thing with crowdfunding, honestly. You have a lot of really worthy projects that struggle to get eyeballs and traffic and attention. And it's just because, it's a great product, but the way that you go about marketing it for whatever reason just doesn't capture attention. And it's really, really sad. It's one of my goals with the podcast is to educate people about how to do that so they can get those worthy projects attention and funding. When you were doing the project with your brother, what was your role there with the Kickstarter?
So I was the project manager and I ran the Kickstarter campaign, and my brother was focusing his efforts on making the new comic book and the reward tier designs for pins and stickers. So he was sticking on the creative art side of things, and then I was on the management side of things. So I was creating the Kickstarter page. I was monitoring the progress and doing the marketing for it and trying to get the word out in positive ways. I was doing interviews when I could, and he would go out and do like interviews if he wanted to do like a specific podcast or show or whatever. But I was mainly just the project manager and just making sure that the ship was sailing. But like you mentioned, we had a distinct advantage of being in pop culture already. It was a recognizable symbol to thousands of people. So we just had to figure out how to funnel those people into the campaign and give them an opportunity to support.
So I got to ask you, dude, did you end up using BackerKit for the Kickstarter campaign, like to help with the surveys and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I ended up using it. So at the end of the day, we had about 350 backers, which, that's just further proof of the commentary I mentioned before. There's thousands of people that know about it. Our video on Kickstarter, for example, had tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of views. 350 people were into it for a positive way. Mm-hmm. So, that's a story in itself. But basically, it was just a team of two, my brother and I needed some help. Even 350 backers was a lot to me. You have to manage all of their requests, and you have to ship and organize all the data and all that stuff. So it's kind of a funny story. I just heard about BackerKit through the grapevine. I have a lot of creative friends. I'm in the art community. I'm an artist myself, and it was recommended to me to just check it out. And I was hitting that algorithm where they were contacting me to see if I needed any support. And basically, I got invited into the office to just chat about BackerKit and how they can help me. And I went there, and after about 30 minutes talking with one of the reps there, Alex, I was convinced not only did I want to use BackerKit, but I also wanted to work there because the staff was just super rad. They were all very welcoming, very smart, intelligent people swimming in this stuff day in and day out. And it was very impressive just to see this small team committed to supporting creators and supporting people who are following their passions. So I knew that day, I was like, I need to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this any way I can. So when I got home, I just scoured the internet and looked at the job postings and applied for things that I thought I could do.
That's
in
awesome,
my mind.
Man. Yeah, that's really cool. We have to bring back that slang, super rad. I like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll do my part.
Yeah. What I love about that is I think that so many creators, they get into Kickstarter and they're just focused on the marketing, the getting the traffic, getting the campaign page together, and like your only goal is to get it funded. But once that does happen, you actually run into a series of other problems. It's sort of a series of good quality problems because you're successful. But the problems that come with having to figure out how to actually ship out all of these rewards, how to figure out, putting together in an Excel spreadsheet all of the backer information, variations in rewards, all that kind of stuff, or even allowing people to continue to buy the product in the future. If you've had a really successful project, you also have people that are still continuing to want to buy this thing. Right. So there's just a whole host of problems. And To me, looking at the different software tools out there, I think BackerKit was really the first one to fully address this problem and to do it in a way that was way more comprehensive than anything else that was out there. So I would love it if you could just give the listeners an idea of what BackerKit, the actual software, can do. What does it allow you to make easier with your campaign, particularly when you're in that final stage?
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of times, like you mentioned, it's right after a campaign's over is usually when we're talking to people. Obviously we can talk to anyone before, during, or after the campaign process. It's recommended a few weeks, maybe 2 to 4 weeks before you launch a campaign. We can start the conversation with consultation, stuff like that. But a lot of times creators aren't prepared for all the challenges, or they just don't know what the challenges are going to be once they're successful on Kickstarter. Once they've earned that money, now what? They think the job's done when they raise the money, but realistically, there's a whole lot of work to do to positively bookend your experience. So where BackerKit comes in is, okay, so let's assume you have a successful project. It's our mission to have the creators focus on the product or whatever they're creating, and we can take care of a lot of the back end business stuff. So you don't have to turn into a business manager overnight or a marketer overnight, and do all that stuff.
What is some of that stuff? What is that back end?
So some of that back-end stuff, includes things such as a robust survey where you can gather information, recapture failed payments, and so on. And really, the survey is an important key to not only get all the information you need to ship, but also, you can have the opportunity to do an add-on store, and, you can do pledge upgrades, add new items. It's highly customizable. It caters to the creators. So it's a very unique tool to keep the momentum going from your campaign immediately when it's over. You don't have to sit there and be like, well, now what do I do? You can capture the late backers, you can keep the funds coming in, and it'll help offset a lot of the prices.
Okay, so I haven't had my cup of coffee yet today, so my brain is a little bit foggy. So excuse if this is a basic question, but so at the end of a Kickstarter campaign, you talk about surveys. So can you just not download the data of your backers? Like, why are you sending out surveys?
You can absolutely, Kickstarter has a built-in feature, for example, where you can export and create Excel sheets, and you can organize that data if that's something that you're good at. But a lot of times, myself included, I'm not prepared to just start swimming in like Google Forms and data documents and the like, and just manage all that stuff, because at this point in the game, I'm focusing on creating that comic book or creating reward tiers or adding new elements to keep the momentum going. So the survey can do a lot of things. It obviously gathers the information. It gets people to get the correct address. It has address validation in it. And then you can also recapture failed payments, like I mentioned. And then it's just a clean, cool looking bookend to the whole process. So people can have like a nice, steady flow out. And, because you can have the most wonderful 30 days during a campaign cycle, but if you're not bookending it properly or giving them a nice send-off, that's going to be your reputation. So you want to keep that in mind. So it's a very polished exit survey for the backers.
I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today.
Okay, so it's used to gather that information in terms of where to ship this product. And you also mentioned failed payments. What percentage would you say an average campaign, I know they vary a lot depending on your category, audience, et cetera. An average campaign, what percentage would you say of the funds actually fail because of failed credit cards or expired credit cards or whatever?
Oh, I mean, I don't know the exact number on that. I would say probably around, 5%. That might be a healthy number, but I'm just speaking on my experience alone. So I did have a number of failed payments, and you have 2 weeks, I believe it is, from when I did a campaign to, they keep trying to charge those cards or offer a new card or try and capture a new card. Mm-hmm. But I had a lot that slipped through the cracks and just didn't get funded, and one of them was a $1,000 tier that someone had supported.
Jeez.
And that was just gone into the wind because it was past two weeks. But once I implemented BackerKit, part of that process was to recapture any of those. And it was a shot in the dark in my mind, but I put it out there, and that person actually thanked me and supported and, actually got a credit card that worked, and that payment went through 3-4 weeks after the campaign had ended. So I was able to recapture that one and about, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 other backers out of 350.
So these failed payments can take a really big chunk out of your crowdfunding campaign. And, you look at your numbers like, well, yeah, maybe I raised $50,000 or $100,000 on Kickstarter. Not all of that is actually going into your bank account. A certain number of those cards aren't being charged. And if you have a tool like that, you can make it so that you're not losing as much as, 5%, because that's a lot. I mean, it's the same fee that Kickstarter takes.
It adds up, and in some cases are bigger than others, and that and I would like to mention also, like, we talked about surveys and add-ons. Those are both kind of like built into that process, but there's also an ability to open up a pre-order store that helps build the momentum as well, and it can link directly to your original campaign, so people have an easy portal to get over there. And then, not to mention just just a large amount of very customizable backer management tools make it easy to use the pledge manager. It saves a lot of time. And I'd be remiss to not mention the support side of things, which I'm not sure.
Well, before we get into that, let me just ask you really quickly. So what are add-ons? You mentioned that a few times.
Add-ons are items that the creator can add to the campaign. So let's use my campaign, for example. We had a comic book, a sticker, and a pin. So add-ons are extra items post-campaign that you want to add or offer people, or they can be campaign items that people might want an extra one of. So if I have a comic book and I want 2, you can easily add another comic book in the survey process. You can also include exclusive items. Like I did 2 exclusive pins and 2 exclusive stickers and a print and a T-shirt and all this extra stuff just in BackerKit, because I was able to customize it and add stuff, and there were really no limits to the amount of customization that I could do. Okay. So that it was a very fun way to kind of build up a store and then get people to see it during the survey process. And you capture a lot of funds that way, because people are excited about it, they're happy to see it fulfilled, and they might want a few extra items to share with their friends.
Interesting. So I was reading this book recently that was basically talking and saying that the actual best time to get someone to upgrade, let's just say you're trying to book a flight, and you book the flight, and then all of a sudden you get all these suggestions like, do you want to upgrade? Do you want to go in this hotel? Do you want to rent a car? Do you want to do all these other things that you can use to sort of enhance your entire trip? The best time to do that is when someone has just purchased your product, because they're the most receptive. So if you're adding more value, even more value, they're probably more likely than just a random person to want to go after some of these other, as you called them, add-ons. So it seems like it's sort of a way to boost your overall amount of funding or your overall sales.
Definitely. Yeah. Like in my example, I raised almost an additional $4,000, or it was like $3,000 or $4,000. And it offset a whole lot of costs with shipping, and, the tax man comes for you as well. So it just helps balance those kind of things out. But, the overall purpose is to give the backers the best experience possible and give them options to create custom bundles for themselves. And, a lot of people wanted weird variations of things that weren't rewards on Kickstarter. So this is an opportunity for you to create a space for people to kind of create the perfect reward tier for themselves. And it's really...
Yeah. I have to give you a little bit of pushback here. So I want to ask you, all these people, you're running a Kickstarter campaign. You get a bunch of people that fund it. Some of those people are your friends and family. They've only recently heard about Kickstarter. Other people obviously are a bit more familiar. Are they going to have a bit of apprehension with using this tool, BackerKit? If I just I'm a backer of this project, and all of a sudden I hear about this tool doing surveys and stuff like that gets this whole other thing off of Kickstarter, the actual platform. What are your thoughts on that? Have creators found it difficult to introduce it to their backers?
Well, I don't think so. I think there are some people. It's kind of like what we were speaking about earlier. The negative stuff kind of outweighs the positive stuff. I think if we're to balance out people that are, have a positive experience incorporating BackerKit versus a negative one or an apprehensive one, it's going to extremely far outweigh it. I'm talking like 99% to 1%. But there are a few loud voices out there that might be apprehensive of, what they would call a third party thing coming in here. But something to remember is that, we're not a part of Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but we are in collaboration with them. At our office in San Francisco, we host, Kickstarter hardware meetups. We go to events and we meet up with them, and we're friendly with them, and they're very aware of us. We're very aware of them. And, it's a very collaborative effort. So it's in everybody's best interest to encourage creators to keep creating and to make more projects. And it's also really positive for anybody involved, for backers to spend more and get more involved and build that community.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of an opportunity for people to immerse themselves in the spirit of crowdfunding a little bit more. But there are those apprehensive people out there. They're saying, "What is this?" and how does this work? So
do you give any kind of I guess text or teaser information or how people should introduce this to their community? Do you give any sort of bite-sized things, either the benefits or, emphasizing the security, or do you give any hand-holding there when they're trying to introduce this to the backers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have a rock and support team over at BackerKit, and part of their job is to, when you agree to use BackerKit, you get a BackerKit team member to help you as the creator, and then you get someone assigned to your backers to help, the everyday questions like changing my address or can I get it in this color? But there's all kinds of resources and tools we give creators, even like verbatim templates of like how to talk if you're not that type of person and you need help. So we'll give you all kinds of templates and, segues and ways to, say what part of the process are you at. So all of those tools, which is something I wasn't even aware of when I signed up for BackerKit. Just one day they just said, "Oh, by the way, here's all this stuff." And it helped me with emails. It helped me word it. It helped me introduce it and talk about how important it is to have this in the process. So as a customer and as an employee there, I'm very, very happy with how
Awesome.
it's all handled and managed.
I mean, this is a lot of good tips and info. I'm getting a much clearer idea of what the service offers. I also think from like more of a nitty gritty level, the ways that it can either save money or enhance the overall sales. What I want to ask you though is, I think this is all kind of like in the sky. Like I want to really bring this down to a level where we can understand. Do you have any, aside from your own, any example campaigns or creators or entrepreneurs that have used this recently that you can share with the audience just to give them an idea of who would use this kind of software?
Yeah, sure. So, the customers, it's a wide variety. If anybody's familiar with Kickstarter, we got tabletop gaming, you got hardware, you got everything in between. So there's all kinds of projects. Some of the bigger projects people might have heard of is like, for example, Kingdom Death is a tabletop game that people do. Peak Design is a really big company that does multiple campaigns. We worked on like Reading Rainbow and Mystery Science Theater projects, video game projects like Friday the 13th and Ukulele, stuff like that. And, I'm in a unique opportunity. My role is content and community over at BackerKit, and I'm running the blog space, the newsletters, helping run events. So I have a unique opportunity to engage with a lot of creators that use BackerKit and, give interviews. And someone I worked with recently was a creator named David Goldklang, who runs multiple Kickstarter projects. He does card decks. So really like nice, like playing cards, like war, poker, all that jazz. He does, he's doing 8 projects in a row, and each deck is designed off of, right. And each deck is based off a planet in our solar system. So he just, I think currently he's got a deck out called Earth, which is where we're at. We're the third planet from the sun. So that's where we're at, it sounds like. But yeah, he's using it, and it's just multiple campaigns, and it just streamlined the process. And when he has a very firm understanding of the crowdfunding community and how it works. And once he's done a few, he kind of got it, and he caught a rhythm. So BackerKit integrates with him, so he can focus on these designs and focus on all of these different aspects of creating this product instead of all the business stuff and
so
handling
David,
all that data.
I mean, he sounds like he is more of a serial entrepreneur, and having launched, 8 projects, that's a lot. Do you have any examples of beginners, people who have never launched a project before, or this is their first one, or maybe their second one that are using BackerKit?
I mean, yeah, besides myself, there's a number of them. Like just off the top of my head, we did the book with this creator named Sean Keenan, from Dinosaurs of the Wild West. It was like an art table book. And I believe that was his first campaign. And, the thing is, a lot of people, like I mentioned before, just aren't prepared for all of these things. And they oftentimes don't even know what the challenges are. They just think it's going to be a simple button click away, or they might assume that the platform has it all set up for them.
Yeah.
But something to just keep in mind is if you're a first time creator, and you're diving into this, in my case, I can only speak off my experience and the people I talk to. It's just priceless because it takes off the load and it gives you just time, which is like the most important thing. If anyone is planning a crowdfunding campaign or has run a crowdfunding campaign, time is just of the essence at all times. And a lot of people are moonlighting, doing this after work hours and trying to squeeze it in on the weekend. It's not your job until you're successful, right? So
yeah. I would actually say what's more important than time is your own energy levels and your own ability to execute on tasks. And I find that particularly for me, doing things that I'm not the best at tends to just drain my energy levels. And also it makes it so that I can't focus on the things that I'm good at, whether it's writing or talking or filming or whatever. So I find that having tools or having people to help me out, it sort of lets me focus on the stuff that I'm good at. And that way I'm not drained, having headaches, frustrated, and angry when it comes to doing the kind of work that I don't like doing,
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, like I said, when I went into that office, there's a lot of ideas if you close your eyes and think of like what a tech startup is or something like that. And, you have a lot of like assumptions. But when I got in
San Francisco, yeah.
In San Francisco, in
you guys are in the hotbed there. Yeah, hotbed of tech.
There's some like stereotypical things people might think of. But when I went in there, it was just a bunch of scrappy, hardworking people that genuinely wanted to help creators follow their passion. So like what you just mentioned, you said it perfectly. We just want people to focus on what they're good at, and then we can handle the rest of the mess, and while we're handling it, we can teach you kind of like tricks of the trade and what we're doing and how we're doing it, so you can get some perspective and maybe do it, a little bit more freely next time or find more ways to do it. But
here's an important question. Do you guys have pool tables in your office or ping pong tables?
No pool tables, no ping pong tables, nothing like that. No, we have dining tables.
Okay. I think tech startup, I think like ping pong tables, I think like beer on tap. I've gone into some like WeWorks in New York City, and it's like that kind of vibe.
I've definitely been in that vibe, but no, this isn't that vibe. It's a workspace first and foremost, and people are there to get it done and serve the customers, not just party.
Yeah, you guys are adults about it, I guess.
That's right.
I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign, or have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, the hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at BackerKit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount.
Well, cool, man. This is a lot of good tips. I guess I want to really get a better sense, though, of who it is that is right for the software, because I know it's not going to be everyone. I know the fact that if you're running, like, just say like a $2,000, $5,000 campaign, you're probably already struggling. You're not going to be able to use some of these other tools and things that are available to you. So who do you really recommend when it comes to either the number of backers or the amount of funding? That's usually a sweet spot or a really good fit for adding on software like this to help with the process.
Yeah, so, just being completely transparent about it, yeah, it's probably not for everybody. If you're a smaller creator, there's algorithms in place that, we can figure out, like, if it's a good fit for you. But in my case, I was probably kind of on the line. I made about $35,000 on Kickstarter with about 350 backers. Sure, it's possible I could have done that on my own. It would have been a complete nightmare, in my opinion, since I was a very small team. Because, you have to always factor in how big is your team. If I had 30 people on my team, we could have jammed it out potentially. But it was just me and my brother, and I was doing pretty much all the management of the campaign. So I needed help one way or another. So, I would say, if you have around 200 plus, 300 plus backers, and that workload seems like a little bit too much for you, that would be a good time to start talking with BackerKit. And, anything above that, I would highly recommend it. And oftentimes we see campaigns and they say, we got this, we got a team, we're prepared for this, we're in it to win it. They run their campaign, they do their fulfillment, and they just have mistake after mistake, problem after problem, and we'll find that they'll come back to us their next campaign and be like, we should have used you the first time. We learned our lesson, so we're going to use you this time. And then we have, a lot of success with them and really get in the weeds with them and get their projects where they need to be so they can maintain that energy in that time.
Yeah, that gives me a really good indication. Well, Jason, you got me convinced here. I want to be like Dave or Sean. I'm running a project. What's it going to cost me? What's the impact this is going to have on my campaign? How can I budget for this if I'm interested? What's it going to cost to sign up with BackerKit or to use your software?
Sure. Yeah. So BackerKit's, this is as time of this recording, so I can't really speak for future listeners because it changes over time. But long story short, we have two plans for people. There's an essential plan and a professional plan, and the essential plan is the most popular one. And this one is 2% of your campaign funds, and then 5% of the funds raised in BackerKit. So that means that whatever you made during your Kickstarter campaign, 2% of that would be part of it. And then whatever BackerKit raises for you in things such as add-ons, like we mentioned, or pre-orders, it'll be 5% of that. And it's a flexible plan because sometimes you find that the BackerKit stuff is really great and you make a ton of money and it's way more than you thought. Sometimes it's not as much as you thought. And then we offer a professional plan for 3% of your campaign funds and 0% of your BackerKit funds raised. So really, we let the potential customer choose between these two plans, and they can change it during the process. So, it's a very unpredictable landscape sometimes. So we don't know who's going to back it or how much you're going to make or this or that. So we kind of let the dust settle, and then the creator can choose whichever one's more comfortable. So it's percentage based, and it's pretty fair numbers, all things considered, the software and the support you get.
It sounds like a lot of the software tools that you also mentioned are sort of aimed at increasing your sales. So that's really, I guess, where the 5% comes in, where if you're helping with add-ons, you're helping with those failed credit cards, after a Kickstarter can't recover that anymore, you're basically increasing sales, and that's a small kind of price to pay for that. When it comes to the professional plan, so these are people that are running or have run multiple campaigns. Is that right?
I mean, it's really up to you. It just depends on how big the project is. The professional one's just a different pricing format. It's more, it's 3% of the campaign fund, so it's just more that way because, like I said, we can't figure out how successful or not successful the BackerKit store will be for you, or the add-ons or pre-orders. Typically, I think the numbers anywhere from 5 to 15% of the campaign funds will be raised extra just in BackerKit. Sometimes it's an insane amount more than that. I mean, there's been a few cases where the BackerKit pre-order store and add-on services have given the creator more money than the campaign itself, just because there were late backers and there were people that came in late. Like I interviewed this gentleman for a project. He was in charge. His name was David, and he did the MSK1 survival knife project, and his BackerKit store was just jamming, and I had the pleasure to interview him and talk about his project. And he's in the survival world, and he does a really awesome survival tips YouTube channel, and his BackerKit store is just doing amazing. So it's very fun to see those kind of stories crop up where not only do you recapture the momentum of a campaign, but you heighten it and then create more backers. And when I say backers, it's really easy to get caught up in the money and the dollars. But every dollar you have represents people, community, supporters. So you're not only building revenue to help offset costs, you're building a community of followers that are going to listen to you from this point forward.
Okay. So basically, you're offering some of this stuff, and then the store is also where some people are also capitalizing. Because I've seen people, for example, go into Indiegogo's in-demand feature after Kickstarter. Is this kind of like that? Like you can continue to raise funds using BackerKit or get orders, I guess?
It's similar. Yeah. I mean, the Indiegogo one is kind of like a forever store, right? Where, you can set it up. And that is pretty typical. We see people do that. But, there's been cases where people have done a Kickstarter campaign and then switched to Indiegogo on demand and then still use BackerKit for the survey features and the management the backer management features and the support features. The support, I'd say when the dust settled, one of the most amazing things that I got from BackerKit was the people behind it. I mentioned you get someone for for yourself as a creator and someone for the backers. So we can't forget that. That's part of that's part of the whole package, and it's priceless.
Very cool. Man, this sounds so cool. I mean, ever since I've met your company, one of the things I love so much is the way that you guys are willing to, number one, educate, but also the values that you have. I really try to partner with people that have similar values to my own, whether that's putting customers first, really trying to put out the best information, not lead people astray, and also just being as transparent as I can be when it comes to my work, when it comes to what I think works well with crowdfunding, et cetera. So I really commend you guys on that. That is one of the reasons why I've been working with you for so long. I also did want to mention to those that are listening, if this sounds interesting to you, and if you want the help that Jason is talking about, if you have heard what you've liked, you like some of these features, you like to implement that with your project, and you're either preparing or you're in the middle of your campaign, and you want to sign up with BackerKit. So they gave me a special link to share with you guys, where you go to crowdcrux.com/BackerKit. That's crowdcrux.com/BackerKit. If you sign up there, we will get a small commission this show, and we're just going to put that pretty much back into bringing on more guests for you guys. So if you like the show and you like BackerKit, if you use that link, you'll be able to support the show. A win-win for everyone there. But also, you guys mentioned, I think, putting out more education as well on your website. Is that true?
Yeah. So part of my role as content and community is to bring people together and give them the resources they need to be successful. So one of my big action items right now is to create a lot of guides and best practices based off my experience running a campaign and just all the people we talk to day in and day out. We have a distinct advantage. We have a lifeline to all of these wonderful creators and their stories. So I'm going to be going through a process over the next few months of mining these stories and listening to the community and what are your needs. And I'm going to, make the best effort I can with the information I have to create those guides and resources for you. And it's going to take place before, during, and after the campaign process, not just once you're successful and funded. So we want to give you the tools to be successful and to be inspired to follow your passions and just do what you want to do and have fun with it and, maintain that energy, like you said.
Yeah. I have a suggestion for the name for your guide. You should have it be how to create a rad Kickstarter campaign.
Just throw in the word rad whenever possible.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm down with it. I might have the power to make that happen.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a lot of great information. I think for those just getting started, you gave a very clear understanding of what they get with BackerKit. Some of those common pitfalls, because you don't necessarily have to go with BackerKit, but by being aware of some of these things that are coming to play in the last week, and also when you finish crowdfunding, the failed payments, etc. I think that's going to make people a lot more prepared. So thank you for coming on the show and sharing all of that. And you'll have to let us know when you get up this guide so the community can go and check it out.
That's right. And I just have to mention and appreciate you, Sal, for what you do for the creative community as well. Ever since I've worked at BackerKit, I've listened to your podcast, I've read your articles, and I've looked at the tools that you yourself provide. And it's extremely appreciated as a creator and someone that works at BackerKit. And I think you do great work, and I think you should keep it up because you're helping a lot of people.
Oh, thanks so much. That means a lot. Thanks a lot. Well, we'll have to have you back with some more information. Maybe we can do a podcast on something like how to increase sales more, how to do copywriting better, anything that you guys mind when you're going through this process of stories that you've collected. Would love to have you back on. You can share one of those.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'd be my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified Podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Hope you liked today's podcast episode. These guys were, I think, super transparent when it came to their service. I think they were very good at sharing some advice and tips with us. They did a really good job, and I think it's kind of clear that they want to do more educational related stuff. Again, this is not for everyone. The BackerKit software, I think, is great for campaigns, as he mentioned, that are above 150, maybe above 200 backers. That's really when this pain point comes into play. If you're under 100 backers, you can probably figure it out yourself. It might be a little bit of headache, but you can probably do it. So I think we got a good sense of whether or not this is a good solution for you. And after listening to this podcast, if you are interested in using this service, this solution, they have some good hand-holding ways to introduce this to your backers. You can go to crowdcrux.com/BackerKit. That is crowdcrux.com/BackerKit. And when you go through that link, you're basically, it's really nice. It's a nice thing to do because you're thanking me for putting this show together. I'll get a small commission at no expense to you whatsoever. And basically, I will just put that back into bringing on even better guests, making sure that this is a podcast that you are getting lots and lots of educational information out of, getting lots of good tips, getting lots of good insights into the crowdfunding process. This is a way of basically thanking us for putting this on for you for free. So I appreciate it so much if you go through that link, crowdcrux.com/BackerKit, and you are interested in learning more about them. And finally, it allows them to track which listeners from the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast actually are interested in them. So they'll come back on, they'll share even more advice with us, more tips, and reveal more ways that you can handle this post-Kickstarter campaign process and things you can do to actually boost your sales, kind of like they did with today's podcast episode. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Invite you to check out some of the other episodes on this show, and I will see you next time.